I discovered my dad had been having an affair with my ex for years. Then he asked me to forgive him, and the way he said it made forgiveness sound like a tip you leave on the table after a cheap meal. And I'm Nora, 32, a pediatric nurse who spends 12-hour shifts convincing small humans and their terrified parents that needles are not betrayal and that breath can be coaxed like a skittish animal. And if I sound too calm telling you all this, it's only because my job taught me how to talk while my hands shake. I want to start with the part that still makes my teeth feel loose. I didn't find out by snooping. I wasn't scrolling his phone or digging in drawers like a TV detective. I found out because a restaurant mixed up the checks. It was a Tuesday night in June, the kind of humid where the pavement looks like it's remembering a story. I'd finished a double and felt like a ghost in scrubs. My best friend Aisha dragged me to a place with lights that thought they were candles and chairs that thought they were conversation. She said, "You need to remember what chewing slowly feels like," and I believed her because Aisha is persuasive and also because she ordered me a martini like she was prescribing it. Halfway through a plate of roasted something I couldn't pronounce, a waiter came over with a conspiratorial lean and said, "Your dessert is on the house," and set down a plate with 2 spoons. "Congratulations," he added with a wink. I said, "For what?" and he glanced at the table behind me and said, "You know," and floated away. I looked. I wish I hadn't. I wish I had let it be a mystery cake and gone home to sleep. But I turned and there in the mirror behind the bar, I saw my father and my ex-boyfriend Evan clinking flutes like a wedding toast. My father's hand rested on the back of Evan's chair, casual and proprietary. Evan's tie was loosened in a way I remembered from 6 Christmases, a slant that said he felt safe. They were laughing at a joke I had not been invited to hear. When the waiter came back, I asked, "What was the congratulations for?" and he smiled and whispered, "Anniversary," like it was gossip. My mouth said, "Oh." My body said, in a language only I heard, "Run." Aisha looked at me, followed my eyes, and made a sound I had never heard her make, a kind of soft bark of disbelief. "No," she said, as if the universe could be negotiated with 1 syllable. "I'm going to the bathroom," I said, like a person in a play who needs to exit stage left before something explodes. In the bathroom, the mirror had the decency not to distort. My face looked like mine, which felt rude. I locked myself in a stall and sat on a toilet lid and texted Evan because that is what muscle memory does when you don't tell it otherwise. "Me, are you at Rocambie?" The dots appeared immediately. He was online. He was in the same building. Somehow that felt worse than if he'd been in Rome. "Evan, Nora. Where are you?" "Me here." There was a pause, 3 seconds, a lifetime, and then a knock on the stall door. "Nora," he said quietly. He didn't sound guilty. He sounded worried for me, which made me want to tear the wallpaper off the world. "Don't," I said. "Please don't do this here." "Nora," he said again, and I opened the stall because I wanted to see his face when I asked the question. He had the same cologne, the one I bought him in year 2 because it smelled like weather that wanted to treat us right. He had a new line at the corner of his mouth, a crease that hadn't been there when we were planning a future like people who had not yet met gravity. He looked older. He looked exactly the same. "How long?" I asked, the way you ask a surgeon, not because the answer changes anything but because naming is a kind of anesthesia. He inhaled. "Not here," he said. "How long?" I repeated, and the sink hummed, the building listened. 4 years, he said. "We were together for 3.5. I laughed. It sounded like a cough. "On and off," he added wildly, like sprinkling sugar over rot. "We were friends first." "What a beautiful word to ruin," I said. A woman came out of a stall, saw our faces, and retreated with the speed of a person who knows a holy scene when she sees one. Evan reached toward me, a reflex, and I stepped back. He stopped. To his credit, he stopped, which is more than I can say for many men I've met. "I loved you," he said helplessly. "What would you call this?" I asked, waving my hand vaguely toward the direction of the bar and my father's hand. "What is the vocabulary for this?" He rubbed his forehead like a man who had lost his keys in a moral labyrinth. "It's complicated." "Complicated is when the subway is late," I said. "This is something else." He looked at the floor like it had the answer. He was there, he said finally. When I thought I'd ruined my career. When I was lost. He understood in a way In a way I what? I asked softly. Loved you the wrong shape. I'm sorry, he said, and somewhere inside me the tiniest, stupidest part nodded, because an apology is a bandage even when it's placed on the wrong wound. I left him in the bathroom and walked back into the restaurant like a person trying to remember the choreography for walking. I paid the bill even though dessert was on the house, because I needed a transaction that made sense. Aisha stood, her hands on my shoulders like she was trying to keep the building from abandoning me. Do you want to go home? She asked. Do you want to burn this place down? I have a lighter. Neither, I said. I'm going to say hello. My father looked up as I approached and did a thing he does when he's about to lie. He smiled too slow. Pumpkin, he said, the nickname he'd kept using even after I told him once, I am not a good. Happy anniversary, I said. Something flickered across his face. I like to think it was shame, but it might have been calculation. Nora, he said warmly. Sit with us. I'm going to go with no, I said. But I wanted to congratulate you both on your longevity. He swallowed. I was going to tell you, he said, the sentence men deliver like a life raft after they've set the ship on fire. When? I asked. Before or after you asked me to help Mom pick out a retirement condo. Don't bring your mother into this, he said sharply, the way people do when the truth could become a mirror. Evan cleared his throat, an actor remembering his line. I looked at him and then looked at my father and said quietly, because the room did not deserve my volume, you made me doubt my instincts for years. You called me jealous. You called me dramatic. You asked why I didn't trust. You taught me not to. My father said my name like a warning. I said his name like a choice. Frank, I said, and he flinched. Aisha paid our check before the waiter could and texted me from 3 feet away, the perfect friend, I am here. I am not moving. We can leave whenever. Also, I hate him with a calm that is terrifying. We left. On the sidewalk, the world was still happening, dogs trying to drag people to other lives, teenagers filming themselves in terrible lighting, a saxophone from somewhere reminding the night that humans can be beautiful. Aisha hailed a cab like she was summoning a spell. I sat in the back and felt my body catch up to itself. My phone buzzed like a trapped insect. My father, let's talk. Evan, please don't tell your mom. My mother, as if she had felt something shift. Love you, call me? I put the phone face down on my knee, the universal gesture for not right now universe. Here's the part where the story forks and I have to choose which path to tell you first, the family one or the me one. If you're reading to learn how to survive something like this, it's the me path that matters. The next morning, I called out of my shift because handing parents thermometers with a steady voice felt like a lie I couldn't tell that day. I made coffee. I called my therapist, who said the sentence that saved me from becoming a statistic of numbness, you can both love him and not let him near you. I texted my mother, can we meet at the park at 2? And she wrote back a heart and yes, because she is a person who has never said no to me out loud. At the park, birds were doing their complicated math. My mother wore an expression I recognized from childhood, the one that means she had baked to manage her feelings and would weaponize a pie if necessary. She handed me a container wrapped in a dish towel. Blueberry, she said. Thank you, I said, because gratitude is a habit my body will not relinquish even while it is on fire. What happened? She asked, and I told her the restaurant scene, not the bathroom part, because she is made of sugar and this world has enough acid. I said the word anniversary. She pressed her lips together like she was keeping the family name inside her mouth. How long? She asked, and I said it and watched her do the math of my childhood backwards. I'm so sorry, she said, which is generous because technically the apology was not hers to give. I knew about the others, she whispered, and I flinched because plural made my stomach flicker. But I didn't know, she stopped. She didn't say his name. She said, a man you loved. She said, my husband. She said, oh God. We sat on the bench for a long time. Love does not get smaller when it is injured, it gets more specific. I loved her knees, the ones that carried me on their bounce. I loved the freckle on her left cheek like a dot on a map where we first learned to laugh. I did not know what to do with the part of her that had suspected and stayed. I decided not to decide while my heart was bleeding. Are you going to forgive him, she asked, the way you ask if the weather will hold for the wedding. I said, I don't know, and it was the truest thing I had said in months. He called, of course he did. The voice I grew up on pleaded like a script. Nora, he began, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I said, a mistake is a wrong turn. You built a second house, and he had the audacity to chuckle like a man who appreciates language under pressure. It didn't mean I didn't love you, he said. It didn't mean I didn't love your mother. Okay, I said. But it did mean. He asked to see me in person. I agreed because I wanted him to see my face when I told him who I am now. We met at their kitchen table, the same pine battlefield where homework, holidays, and 1,000 small wars had been waged. My mother made tea and left the room like a stagehand. He sat with his hands folded like a student confessing he had eaten the paste. I'm ashamed, he said. I hope so, I said. He tried the oldest trick, the reframing. It started when you and Evan were already having problems, he said. We were just talking. I was trying to help. I saw him slipping. He saw me. He paused, maybe hoping the symmetry would save him. We didn't mean to hurt you. Intent is a cheap currency, I said, and surprised myself. It buys nothing here. He sighed. He's good at sighing, it makes people offer him blankets. You've never forgiven me, he said suddenly, a pivot to an old fight. Not really. For missing your piano recital in 5th grade. For choosing the big case over your birthday once. You keep lists, Nora. Yes, I said simply. It's how nurses save lives. He blinked. He had wanted me to say, that's not true, Daddy, and go back to being his easy child. I did the most radical thing I could think of. I didn't help him. What do you want? I asked. I want my daughter, he said, and if you've never had to explain to a parent that you are not a possession, I hope you never do. I want forgiveness. You don't want forgiveness, I said. You want relief. We sat there and the house creaked like it does when it is choosing sides. He talked. He told me about being 60 and invisible. He told me about loving the way Evan listened to him without wanting anything but his attention, which is hilarious if you've ever met Evan. He told me about ego and fear and the way a secret can become a room you think is home until the light comes on and you realize you have been living in a closet. He cried. I did not then. My tears had learned to be shy. Please, he said finally. You're my girl. No, I said, not cruel, not loud, just no. I am a woman who used to be your little girl. And I can't protect your heart from the shape of your own choices. He winced. So you won't forgive me. Someday, I said, and felt the truth of it even as I hated saying it because it felt like a gift. But not today. Today I am going to protect myself from you. That's the only useful thing I can do with this wreckage. We put space between us the way you put gauze between a wound and a bandage. My mother separated their bank accounts. My father moved into a 2-bedroom that smelled like new paint and willful optimism. He sent me texts at 2 a.m. about movies we used to watch. I did not block him because I am weak for my own past, but I didn't respond. Evan emailed me a letter that read like a college admissions essay written by a man in a mirror. He said he was in love with my father, with me once, with the versions of us we made for each other, with how we made him feel necessary. He asked me to not hate him in a way that took my hatred for granted. I archived it. I'm sure he wrote a better draft for my father. People will ask, because they always do, how did you not know? I did know, in the way you know there's a leak because the paint looks slightly wrong. I just kept calling it humidity. There were the weekends my father worked late and came home with wind on his collar and an apology that sounded practiced. There were the ways Evan knew what my father liked to eat at Kava without asking. There was the time I came back from a night shift to find my father in our apartment fixing a wobbly chair and Evan looked tired and oddly lit from inside. He said, "Your dad just gets me," and I laughed because the alternative was a scream that would have cracked the plumbing. I don't want to make this sound like a tragedy you watch with popcorn. It's not. It's a series of Tuesdays. It's a form you fill out at HR. It's a recipe you learn for yourself: 3 cups of sleep, 2 of water, 1 walk, 1 friend who brings over real food and refuses to discuss the men. It's the way the kid with the broken arm smiles when the pain finally yields and you get to be the person who saw the first good breath. It's the grocery store cashier who says, "Rough day," and you say, "I discovered my father is human in a way that hurts," and she nods like there is a union of cashiers who have heard it all and filed it under survival. Months passed and the heat broke and the city remembered it could be kind. I went running again in the mornings, slow, uneven, the way trust returns to a body. I changed my ringtone for unknown numbers to silence because anxiety does not deserve a soundtrack. I started a group at the hospital called Family Debriefings for nurses who had to keep working while their personal lives caught fire. We sat in a circle with coffee and told the truth out loud. One woman said, "My son refuses to speak to me because I left his father after 30 years and sometimes I want to walk into the ocean," and another said, "I'll walk with you and we'll stop at our ankles," and we all laughed the laugh that buys oxygen. At Thanksgiving, my mother set 2 tables. One inside for people who wanted to pretend, one on the porch for people who couldn't. I sat on the porch with Aisha and my cousin Eli, who had just come out and was learning to own his life with both hands. My father came by with a pumpkin pie he didn't bake. He stood on the porch and asked if he could leave it. "You can," my mother said from the doorway. "You can also leave your apology again if you want. It will keep in the fridge." He looked at me. I looked back. We were 2 people who share a face and a story and nothing else in that moment. "How's work?" he asked, defaulting to the safest conversation for men who don't know their daughters anymore. "Good," I said. "I'm teaching a new nurse how to tell a 5-year-old the truth without scaring him." He nodded like I'd told him how weather works. "I am trying," he said. "I know," I said, and it didn't feel like forgiveness, it felt like inventory. He left. We ate the pie he didn't bake. It was too sweet. We added whipped cream and cinnamon and opinions and made it edible. I'd like to tell you I forgave him in one cinematic moment where a choir swelled. I didn't. Forgiveness, it turns out, is physical therapy. It is boring and incremental, and only you can feel the centimeter you gained today. One day, months later, I walked past the restaurant where I'd seen them and I didn't flinch. I texted my father a photo of the tree outside that had turned the exact red of the sweater my grandmother used to knit us at Christmas. I wrote, "She would have loved this," and he wrote back, "I miss her," and I put my phone in my pocket and felt something unclench. Evan and my father did not last. If you wanted that arc, I can't give it to you. They tried domesticity and discovered that a relationship built on secrecy starves in sunlight. My father called me one night and said, "It's over," and I said, "I'm sorry for your pain," and meant it in the same way I mean it to a patient, kindly, professionally, with a boundary. He didn't ask me to forgive him. He said he was working on forgiving himself. I told him good luck. I told him it's harder when the person you betrayed lives in your mirror. He laughed, a broken little sound, and I hung up and went to sleep in a bed that belongs only to me and my ridiculous duvet. I'm Nora, 32. I hold tiny hands and listen to beeps and lift parents off floors, and I learned that you can love a person who made your life into a plot twist and still refuse to hand them your piece as penance. If you came over tonight, I'd make you tea in the mug Aisha bought me that says you are allowed, and would sit on my balcony where the city hums like a heart monitor at a normal rate, and I'd tell you the thing I tell the teenagers in the oncology ward when they say they're sorry for being difficult: your job is to heal, not to be easy. I'd say it again for me. I'd say it for you too if you needed it. And if we heard a song from the street that used to be ours, I'd let it play without letting it in. I don't know if that's forgiveness. Maybe it's something better, the quiet, ordinary courage of not abandoning myself when it would be so polite to.